Okay, if you couldn't tell, okay, if you can't tell, I did get a little bit cooked the other day in the sun. You can for sure tell, but we're just gonna pretend that that's not there. There's a wasp out here and I'm gonna scream if it comes near me. Today, I really wanna give you guys like a list of super basic art supplies that you're gonna need if you're doing acrylic painting, because that's what I do. I paint with acrylic, so that's what I'm gonna be talking about. If you wanna know anything else, I probably don't have the answers, so you're gonna have to ask somebody else. There are a couple extra stuff on the list, but you like don't need it. Even then, I don't know it that much. I might not be qualified to make this video, but I'm gonna make it anyways. I'm gonna share with you guys the little knowledge that I do have. The first thing that you're gonna need is obviously paint. Now again, I use acrylic paint. I keep my paint in this big old duffel bag right here. It's got a lot of stuff in it. Now I do have a collection of different paints, but most of the paints that I have in here, they're like super cheap. These paints right here, they're the Deco Art Crafters acrylic paint. I've had these paints for a couple years now. I know how to use them, so I'm like a little bit okay with them, but I do want to get better quality paints, so this is a really good starter. When I first got these paints, I got them at my local dollar store, and they came in like every single color. But then they stopped doing that, and then they made it to make it in like the smaller packaging, like the apple barrel one, not even for the same price, because you know how the dollar stores are like raising their prices now. As soon as I'm done with all the paints that I have of this brand, I will be switching on to a different kind of paint. The thing with these cheap paints is that they are super transparent. Sometimes they're not very opaque, very liquidy, very watered down, but these are great starting paints. Apple barrel, Deco Art, something that's nice and cheap, and it all really just depends on like the type of art that you want to make. But if you're like me and you don't know anything about color, I would recommend getting a variety of colors. But I have 3 different types of green for the same brand. I have a lot of different colors. I do have artist loft paints. I would not recommend these. I would, but like not really. Like I said, it just like depends on the type of art that you want to be making. When they dry a lot like shinier. These ones are a lot thicker, whereas the super liquidy ones, they dry a lot faster. It's not really the case for these ones. Some paints will dry a lot darker, these ones do. So again, first thing that you need is acrylic paint. I have a whole bunch because they were cheap. It just depends on like your skill level and what it is you're trying to do, so just take your time with it, do what you gotta do. So sometimes it's a trial and error, but sometimes like if you do your research, you'll know which one's which. The next thing that you're gonna need is obviously paintbrushes. Now I have a lot of paintbrushes because the paintbrushes that I get, they're like really cheap. I get like packs of synthetic paintbrushes. I keep some of my paintbrushes in this pencil bag. In this pencil bag, I have a collection of different kinds of paintbrushes. They're not all gonna be the same, but that's okay. I also have, this was my very first set of paintbrushes. Some of them obviously don't belong. Also, I don't know where the other ones went, but this pack was I think my very first pack of paintbrushes that I got, and I still use it. I've been using it for years. I don't know exactly what they're called, but I got this pack from Target. It's synthetic brushes, and if you can see, it's got a nice little variety in there of different kinds. That's what I really recommend, a pack with different kinds of paintbrushes with a good variety in there, because you can make a lot more when you have more options with you. The next thing that you're gonna need is your canvas, the thing that you want to paint on. Now there are a lot of ways that you can get canvases, so I do recommend you get those like big packs. This canvas I have right here, I got it in a pack of 4 or 6 maybe from Michael's. I do recommend getting the packs just because they're cheaper and you could do a couple of them. Michael's always has some kind of sale going on. They always have some kind of discount code, so take advantage of that. Just make sure that you find the canvas size that you want. I have this big one, I have this little one. This one I actually got from the Dollar Tree, but this one did not come in a pack. But I did want to show you guys because not all canvases are made the same. Well, some of them, like this little one, will have like a completely straight edge, but other ones like this one, if you can see, it like rounds out. It's not like a complete straight edge, but I don't like that. So I'm gonna try to not be buying any more of these. It was great to start off with, but now that I like know my paintings and know what I want to do, I don't think I'll be buying these packs of like the rounded ones anymore. I have these paintings that I made on wooden pieces, and you can also use a sketchbook for your paintings. I like the idea of using a sketchbook because it comes with a lot of pages. Really, you can just use this. You wouldn't even like need canvas, again, depending on what you're gonna do. I like doing a lot of my paintings in here. I got this sketchbook because it was on clearance for $3.74, but it is a mixed media sketchbook. Now I do think that mixed media sketchbooks are like a really good idea, especially if you want to do drawings on it too. But if you're going to use it like solely for painting, then I would recommend you getting either one that specifically says painting or watercolor on it, because those pages will be so much thicker and your pages aren't gonna warp. You see how on the sides they're like warped? If you get thicker paper like watercolor paper, it's not gonna do that as much as it does on here. When I first started painting, I used literally anything I could find. You could use the sketchbook to start off with. You could use cardboard. Some things, they come in like cardboard boxes. So when you take down those cardboard boxes, I would just like cut off the edges and cut out the middle parts, and that would be my canvas. That worked pretty well for the time being. You could use wood, you could use glass, but no matter what you use, it is recommended that you put down primer, some kind of primer. The most common thing is a layer of gesso. Now, if you can't get gesso, that's fine. I didn't get gesso until like last year. What you can do is that you could put down a layer of acrylic white or any other layer of acrylic paint. Put down a full layer of it to like get your canvas fully covered, to make sure that there's no spots leaking through or anything. The next thing that you're gonna need is a palette. I had a couple palettes that were like from the dollar store, and I have no idea what happened to those. I lost those. So I've been using makeshift palettes, which you can do as well. One of them is my sketchbook. I used the cover of my sketchbook as a palette. It kind of ruins the sketchbook. Like, I will not be able to get this off, but that's okay. I don't really care about it. I'll use this one when I'm painting in my sketchbooks. And you can use like literally anything. You can use another piece of paper. You can use disposable paper plates, or the wood, the cardboard, whatever you have. Anything that you have that you either wouldn't mind getting rid of or wouldn't mind destroying the top of it, it's fine, perfectly fine. Another thing that you're gonna need is a water cup. Do not get your paint cup confused with your actual cup if you are drinking something. Sometimes my paint water will look like horchata, and it's a little tempting. But don't drink it, don't drink it. You can use any kind of cup for your water cup. You can use a cup that you no longer want to use at home. The disposable plastic cups, whatever you can use, go ahead and use that. You could even use a container. It doesn't have to be an actual cup. I spent a lot of money on this paint jar. I don't even have the top to it anymore. I don't know where it went. It'll turn up eventually. But I bought this at Michael's. I think it's $16, and that's a lot of money for a jar with some chicken wire in it, basically. But I bought it because I didn't want to make it myself. And Dad, if you are watching this, it was on sale. Was this little $16 jar worth it? I would say yes. It's great because I don't have to use like an actual cup for my kitchen, but I would not recommend it when you are first starting out. When you are first starting out, I would recommend just using a regular cup from your kitchen and just saying goodbye to it, or wash it regularly. That's what I did at first. So the next thing you're gonna need is some kind of towel. Now that can be a basic towel, or if you want to be like me, I use old t-shirts. I use t-shirts specifically. This is one of my t-shirts. I have 3 of these t-shirts, and they are messed up with paint, but every now and then I will throw them in the wash and they'll be a little bit better. But I use these instead of using paper towels because I feel like it's a lot less wasteful. So I would recommend getting an old t-shirt that you really don't want. The next thing you're gonna need is something to paint on, some kind of like painting surface. Now you could use an easel, but for like a good easel, that's gonna be kind of a lot of money. What I will do is I will put the easel right there in front of the couch, and I will use the couch as like an extra sort of support. You can use some books to prop up your painting. You can use the wall, you can use the couch. Another thing I'll do is I'll put down my canvas on the floor, and I'll paint on the floor. But again, you might want to put down some kind of protection because you might ruin your floors depending on how messy you are. Sometimes you don't realize that you get a little messy, and then it might dry on the floor before you realize. But yeah, I would recommend you put something down. I would recommend getting a palette knife. This palette knife I did get at the dollar store as well. Palette knives are really good for different kind of painting techniques, but they're also really good for mixing up different colors, because you really don't want to get the actual paint stuck in the bristles of your paintbrush. If you can, if not, don't worry about it. You can use the other side of your paintbrush. I've been doing that too. As long as you're cleaning up your paintbrush is really good, I don't think it should be that big of a problem. It's getting really hot and the sun is closing in on me, so I kind of need to hurry. Again, depending on the work that you want to do, the next thing you're going to need is a pencil. I use a pencil for every single one of my paintings, whether I've already put down paint, whether I'm starting a brand new one. I draw out everything because I can't just put down paint. I need to draw out things, so I use a pencil. Another thing you might need if you want to get like accurate proportions is a ruler. Make sure that you measure out your things. If not, it's fine, but I like using a ruler. I have these rulers from the dollar store. Again, I get everything from the dollar store except for that $20 jar at Michael's. Another thing that I really recommend is tape. You can use painter's tape, you can use frog tape, masking tape, as long as it's not like scotch tape or duct tape, just like painter's tape. I use tape in almost every single one of my paintings. I use it in my sketchbook so I can make clean lines, but tape is really good for like anything and everything, so I love having tape, and it's great. Depending on what kind of painting you're gonna do, if it's like something that you want to keep forever, maybe give to somebody, I would really recommend that you get a bottle of varnish. This is the varnish that I use. I get it from Michael's. After your paint dries, you give it like another full day to dry, and then you put it on. So I really recommend getting varnish if that's the kind of painting you want to go for. Okay, and finally, the very last thing that you're gonna need is a great attitude, because really, if you're not having a great attitude while you're painting, your paintings are not going to come out well. Take it from me, I get very upset. I get very frustrated at my painting sometimes. And if I don't like stop and take a step back, I'm just going to keep ruining the painting. I'm going to make it worse. I'm going to get even more frustrated. If you don't have a great attitude, it's just not going to work out. And remember, it's okay to do all the cheap stuff. It's to get the stuff that's from the dollar store, your cardboard boxes at home. It's okay to have the cheap stuff, especially when you're beginning and you don't know if you want to like fully commit to this. I'm like 5 years into painting and I'm still using the cheap stuff that I bought 5 years ago. I'm still buying the cheap stuff that I've been buying 5 years ago. So cheap stuff can be very, very good, and I really recommend it every single time. The more experienced you become, the more that you want to find your style, the more research that you do, the more things you want to experiment with, that's when you can buy more things. But for now, get the basics. Not even everything that I mentioned is a basic. Really, all you're gonna need is your canvas, some kind of water jug, maybe a pencil, your paints, obviously, your paint brushes. That's really it, just to start. Another thing that you're gonna need, if I haven't said this already, I think I forgot this. The last thing you're gonna need are references. If you wanna paint something, you're gonna need like a picture of it. Because, like, if you're like me, I can't picture things. If you tell me to draw or paint a tree, I don't know what a tree looks like anymore. So I have to pull up a picture of a tree because I can't. I don't know what it looks like. So I really recommend getting your references. I get my references from a lot of places. From Pinterest, I get it from Pexels, I get it from good old Google. Sometimes if I see a painting on Instagram that I like, then I'll just recreate that. And I'm not like selling anything right now. I haven't made very many original pieces of art. It's okay if you take other people's things, just do not use it as your own. Take it as a practice, take it as a learning experience. Anyways, I really hope that you guys learned something. I really hope that you guys can take something out of this, and I hope that anybody who is starting their journey on acrylic painting can use what I've given you. The most important thing is that you're having fun. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.